Hey everybody, it's William Nayrod here, the Paradise Guy. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the first webinar in the Belize Success Mastery Seminar series. My seminar today is going to give you an overview of Belize, all the things you need to be thinking about, whether you're going to vacation, invest, retire, work, or start a business in Belize, so stay tuned. For those of you that don't know me, my name is William Nayrod. Everybody knows me as the Paradise Guy. I've been very fortunate over the last 5 years. I lived in beautiful Belize. Now, everybody that's on here today, of course, is very interested in all things Belize. And frankly, that's one of the reasons why I started this Success Series, is to make sure that everybody had the information they need so that they can actually get done whatever it is they want to get done. You see, having an idea, having a vision is very easy to do, especially when you think of paradise, especially when you come to Belize. You see all the wonderful people, you see the beautiful scenery. But what people don't tell you is that there are specific things that you need to know in order to even get to the starting line. This series and my ongoing support is there to help you guys take all of the knowledge that I've accumulated from individually doing this myself, but also all the knowledge that I've garnered from having done this for many, many other people. So when you ask me a question of how to get things done, you're going to hear information that's been tried, it's been trued, and it's information that people out there have truly benefited from. So I've got a little presentation here that I'm going to go through. It's a Belize overview. It's going to give you ideas of the comprehensive nature of the things you can learn from me over time, but it's also going to give you ideas of what kind of questions you're going to need to ask going forward. Because if you don't know which questions to ask, you're going to be left out on the sidelines. And if you get left out on the sidelines, you're going to get splashed. You're going to fall down. And the last thing I want to see is anybody, especially that's part of my Success Mastery program, is not make it to the starting line, but also not be able to succeed after they get there. So listen to this presentation. As we're going through, I urge you to write down any questions. Again, if you look down in the chat bar on the lower part of your screen, you should be able to type in questions there. If you can't type them in at this point, after the presentation is done, I will turn on the live question and answer, and you can certainly ask me any questions. And I want to make sure that I'm here to give you the best possible information as possible. So with that, welcome to Belize Success Mastery with me, William Nayrod, the Paradise Guy. So we're going to start off first. We're going to talk a little bit about my story. Many people think I came to Belize because it's a beautiful place. While that's partially true, the real reason I came to Belize is I had a successful background as an investor, as a real estate agent, as an entrepreneur, and I had reached a level of my career where things had become very mundane. Things were not such a challenge. I was looking for a different style of life, but also new ways to grow and invest and to thrive. I also have had a passion my entire life to help people. So I thought, what could I do? Where could I go that would satisfy all that in one easy step? Well, when I did my research online, it took me about 5 minutes to stumble across an island in the Caribbean, right off the coast of Belize, called Ambergris Caye. And after about 5 minutes, I went in to my partner there at the time, and I said, hey, listen, I think we should move to Belize. And she looked at me and she said, no, you're crazy, not going to happen. After that, I went back, I did some more research. 10 minutes later, I was back in the kitchen going, you know what? I really think we ought to move to Belize. She said, yeah, go to sleep. I think maybe you've had too many beers. So I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning, and I woke up with the same thought. I said, you know, I really think we should move to Belize. All of my research got me so excited because what I was looking at was the leading indicators. I wasn't looking at how beautiful it was, although those pictures did pop up and I did see it was a very beautiful place and it offered a good lifestyle. But I also looked at all the reasons why it would work for me. 1, it was English speaking. 2, close proximity. 3, pretty place, warm water. 4, all the leading indicators pointing to all the future potential from an investment standpoint. 5, great place for me to continue my 30-year real estate career. So with all that in mind, I finally convinced my family to come down there with me, and they did. And the rest is history. Been down here in Belize for 5 years. It's been a wonderful experience. Has it been without its trials and tribulations? Of course not. If it had been, I wouldn't have the ability to share all of this good information with you. So I'm going to go through a little bit about what specifically those leading indicators said that made me choose Belize. Many of you have gone to ParadiseGuy.tv, which is my YouTube channel. There's a YouTube video specifically on there says why I chose to live and invest in Belize. If you haven't watched that video, it's one of my more popular ones. I recommend you go back and watch that. It goes through in detail all the reasons why I chose, but I'm going to run through some of that right now so that you've got that information. One, like I said before, it was English speaking. At one point in time in my life, I did speak Spanish pretty well. I still understand it pretty well, but I am definitely not fluent in speaking that. So I wanted to go to a place where it wasn't necessary for me to learn a new language. Belize obviously fit the bill as English is the primary language. Secondarily, I wanted to be to a place that wasn't overdeveloped yet. When you looked at Belize compared to the rest of the Caribbean as far as what stage of development it was at, Belize was definitely at a pace far behind the rest of the Caribbean. I liked that because I like to be in a place before it becomes self-evident that it's going to be a huge success. That's where a little bit of speculation has benefited me and many others. Today, it's a little more self-evident as to why Belize is a hot place to invest, retire, vacation, and of course, start a business. And you're going to hear a lot more about that in this presentation. The third thing is I like to see all of the airlines that were starting to come down to Belize, new ones all the time, new direct flights being booked. The fourth is I saw that there were no big brands at that point in time, but I heard rumblings that the big brands like Hyatt and Marriott and names that you've heard of worldwide were actually looking at planting their flag in Belize. Margaritaville, for example, is one of the latest to plant their flag down there, and there are many more in the works. When big brands like that start to talk about coming to Belize and developing and putting their name behind tourism in a place like that, you know that they have the resources to research this much more than you and I do. So that has really been a feather in the cap for development, for investment in Belize, and it's also made people like myself and people that came before me a lot more sure that we're in the right place at the right time. So what have I done since I've been in Belize? Well, I've been fortunate to be in the development game. I've been fortunate enough to invest. I've been fortunate enough to partake in all of the fun activities there, which you've seen again on my ParadiseGuy.tv channel. But I've also had the privilege to be able to educate, inform, and guide many, many other people on how to be successful in Belize. So my mission today, just so you know, is to continue to do that. I'm going to expand into other marketplaces where I think opportunity exists as well. I love doing what I do. I love interacting with people and helping them get what they want out of life. It's really one of the motivating factors in everything that I do. So let's move on to our next slide. Let's talk about the government of Belize. Well, Belize is a British Commonwealth country. It's a parliamentary democracy. Belize has not been around a long time. Actually, as a country, an independent country called Belize, it's only been around since 1981. So people look at Belize sometimes and they get frustrated at the stage of development that it's at. They go, well, it doesn't have enough infrastructure. Well, there's been poor planning. Well, there's not enough laws. Things like that. I've heard lots and lots of complaints, but those are the benefits. You see, we're here in a young country. We're here in a country that needs infrastructure, that needs outside investment, that needs development. You see, you always want to be in a place where you can be in the path of progress. You don't want to be in a pace where you're chasing the progress. And Belize, even today, after me being 5 years, is still presenting that opportunity. Let's talk about currency considerations. I also like the fact that Belize has their money pegged to the US dollar. 1 US dollar is equal to 2 Belize dollars. What that means is you can come down to Belize, and whether you have a dollar in your pocket or whether you have 2 Belize dollars in your pocket, they're worth the same. You can walk into a store and spend that money the same as the Belizean dollar. You don't have to worry about currency fluctuations. And it's very, very easy to integrate into the culture because our money is accepted the same as the Belize dollar. Now, I will tell you this about the US dollar. If it's defaced in any way or if it's torn, it will not be accepted. And that's simply because the banks will not take it as a deposit. So if you go to a merchant and you've got a $20 bill with a black mark on it or it's torn, the merchants will not accept that, and nor will the banks. So today, Belize sits, and it's a T8 tax haven. It's a very desirable place to be from a tax perspective. Even the United States has given an incentive saying, listen, if you live in Belize and you're there, I think it's over 345 days per year, and you are trying to make money there, and let's say you make $120,000 in foreign earned income, you still have to file with the US and of course talk to your tax accountant about this yourself, but you still have to declare that you made $120,000 in income in Belize, but you do not have to pay taxes on that first 120 because of that exemption that the IRS offers you. Secondly, in Belize, there is no capital gains tax. There's no inheritance tax. And there's a very simple income tax structure. It's not complicated like in the States where you have to get an accountant and tally up all your deductions on all that. It's simply, what'd you make this month? Put it on a form, pay your taxes. And every single month you do that in Belize. It's a very, very simple structure, very simple to navigate, and very, very affordable. So let's talk more about the history of Belize. Belize became British Honduras way back in 1840. Then in 1962, became a crown colony controlled by Britain. In 1964, they actually installed their own government, so they became self-governing, which was an exciting accomplishment. And then finally, in 1981, Belize attained its full independence. You'll find a very proud population in Belize. They're very proud of their independence. Independence Day each year in September is a huge celebration. It's a lot of fun. And, you know, it is an accomplishment to become an independent country, and it is something to be proud of. And we have to remember when we come to Belize that we are guests in their country, and not necessarily expect them to adapt to us and everything that we know and everything that we think we do better. But we should come there and adapt to their life, to their country, to their culture, and then we should see how we can bring value to that marketplace. Those people that are able to do that are able to be very, very successful. Continuing on with our overview of Belize, let's look at the culture and the people and the languages. The culture is very diverse in Belize. There are people from all over the world that have settled there. We have a large Chinese population. We have a large Lebanese population. We have people from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras. We have a Garifuna culture down there. We have Africans there. We have Americans. We have Canadians. People from all over the world have come there. And over the years, these people have had children. And it's created a very diverse population, a population that exists. This is the only place I can say this where I've been in the world, a population that exists without racism. Because you can't point to one person or the other and say, you're this or that, because everybody's mixed together. And that creates a very, very unique situation. It creates a very welcoming environment. And people are just people, which I believe is the way it should be everywhere in the world. But in Belize, you'll actually experience that. So very, very beautiful setting for that. Let's talk about the language. English, as I said before, is the primary language that is spoken in Belize. It's what's taught in the schools. All contracts and signs and everything down there are in English. Spanish is spoken widely as well. And then, of course, there's Creole. And Creole is a broken English that actually came from way back when the slaves were imitating the way that their slave owners were talking. But they didn't read and write, so they had to use their phonetic understanding of what they were hearing. So basically, they took this broken English and they kind of run things together. But you can hear, if you listen closely, You can hear the English language in there. And this has become the cultural language of Belize. Garifuna is also spoken as well. But if you speak English, you're going to be understood everywhere you go. If you want to be more accepted, you're going to learn some Creole. So let's talk about the geography. If you look on the slide in front of you right now, you're going to see a picture of Belize and some of the islands around Belize. There are many, many keys, as we call them in Belize, or islands, as we call them in North America. There are keys everywhere, and Belize is a relatively small country. You can literally drive across the country in one day. It would take you a little bit longer to visit all the keys because you have to do that obviously by boat. But if you got in a helicopter, you could literally fly over every key, fly completely over the entire island and around the island in a little more than half a day. The climate down in Belize is tropical. There's different climates within the different districts of Belize. If you look at the different colors, you'll see Corozal in purple, you'll see Orange Walk in orange, you'll see Belize, you'll see Cayo, Stand Creek, and Toledo. So these are the different districts of Belize, and they all offer a different way of living. They offer a little bit different of a cultural experience. They offer a little bit different topography. But what you will find across the country in Belize, you'll find a tropical climate. Obviously, when you get in the mountains of the Cayo district, you'll find a little cooler weather because of the elevation. And when I talk about elevation, I'm talking less than 1,000 feet elevation, but still there is a difference because of the mountains. The second largest barrier reef in the world is off the coast of Ambergris Caye, which is the largest island off the coast of Belize. It is the #1 largest living reef now that the barrier reef in Australia, the Great Barrier Reef, much of it has been bleached out and is considered no longer living. But no matter how you slice it, it is a big, beautiful barrier reef. There are lots of preservation efforts going on to make sure that reef is maintained. There's even coral growing farms that have started up recently to supplement the growth of corals. And of course, there's lots of preservation of the natural marine life to make sure that there are plenty of lobster and conch and reef fish to make sure that you can enjoy it and future generations can enjoy Belize. The barrier reef is the main tourist draw and the reason why Belize has become what it's become. Many of you have heard of the Great Blue Hole. The Great Blue Hole is literally a wonder of the world. It's a huge sinkhole out in the ocean off the coast of Belize. It is beautiful. Sir Richard Branson recently took a submarine down to the bottom of that. Got to see all sorts of marine life, stalactites, stalagmites. Really a spectacular journey. Got a lot of press for Belize. And it's definitely a must-dive situation if you're a scuba diver and you're planning on coming to Belize. So if you'd like more information about anything to do with tourism in Belize, of course you guys know you can always hit me up at info@paradisesky.com, and I'm here to help with that. A big portion of Belize, marine and terrestrial, are reserves and World Heritage Sites. As a matter of fact, over 20% of the entire country. This is pretty much unheard of anywhere else across the world. But the reason for that is because Belize realizes that their greatest resource is their people and what their land and their sea offers. So they understand that making sure that both of those are preserved means that more people like yourselves will want to come and vacation, invest, retire, or start businesses in beautiful Belize. So let's talk about travel and vacation. Currently, there are quite a few direct flights down to Belize. I know right now, given the COVID-19 situation, things are at a standstill. But as soon as we get past this, and we will, just like we've gotten past every other pandemic that's ever come our way, those flights are going to open back up. And as a matter of fact, I would guess in the future, as has been in the past, there will continue to be new and more direct flights coming into Belize. What this means to you is that with more people coming down, it makes for a better business climate. It makes for more people buying real estate. But in the meantime, because of what COVID-19 has created as far as a lull in tourism and a lull in the dollars coming into the economy, it's created great opportunity for those of you that would like to invest, start a business, and or simply come down vacation and buy a business. You see, everybody is going to be very, very hungry for your tourist dollars and or your investment dollars when Belize is back open again. Accommodations across Belize vary widely. If you look on the picture on the slide, you'll see a place that's on the west side of Belize. It's a beautiful, serene setting, very, very nice area of the island, but boat access only. There's no road that will lead you to that particular resort. Some people look at that and go, hey, that would be a great place to stay. Other people say, no, I want to be in the heart of San Pedro. I want to be in the middle of the hustle and the bustle, the action. I want to be able to walk into Central Park, hop on the water taxi, and fly on over to Key Cocker in 20 minutes. Other people say, you know what, I want to be on Ambergris Key on the east side, but I want to be way up north. I want a little more quiet, but I still want to be able to drive into town on my golf cart in a few minutes. Others say, you know what, I want to be out at Secret Beach on the west side where I can actually drive into town. May take a little bit longer, but I want to be able to drive into town, and I want to be out there in the serene blue sargassum-free waters. There are accommodations in the jungle on the mainland. There are accommodations on the beach on the mainland. So no matter what you're looking for, there are accommodations and investments that can suit your needs. What you have to do is educate yourself, and that's what I'm here to help with. Educate yourself on what are the differences between the different areas. Where should you go when you come and visit? What should you see? What should you buy when it's time to invest? What should you beware of? What should you stay away from? All of that is what you're going to learn from me. Excursions are an important part of discovering Belize. When you come down to Belize, please talk to me about your excursions. Let me send you to the right places so that you can experience the best that Belize has to offer with the best tour guides, with the best equipment, with insurance, with licenses. These are things that need to be taken into account. There are a lot of people out there that will say they can take you on the best tours and that they have a boat, but that doesn't mean they're qualified to give you the best experience possible. I want to make sure that you have that best experience. And many times I actually go with my clients on the tours. I want to make sure that they're learning the right things, that they're hearing the right things, that they're seeing the best that Belize has to offer. So be in touch with me, info@paradisesky.com. Happy to help you out, planning your trip, and of course, setting up your excursions. Let's talk about shopping. If you look at some of the pictures on this slide, you'll see a beautiful market. The beautiful market there is in a place called San Ignacio. San Ignacio is in the Cayo district. San Ignacio has beautiful jungle and rainforest and beautiful market, especially on the weekends. On Saturday, this market opens and it has the most amazing produce. And you can buy everything else there that you can imagine. It's a wonderful place to go, wonderful pricing, and the people are super, super friendly. You look to the right of that, you're going to see Middle Street in downtown San Pedro. What an awesome experience it is to walk and drive your cart around San Pedro. You'll see all the different shops. There's little ones, there's big ones. There's a hardware store on every corner. There's plenty of grocery stores and fruit and vegetable stands that you can go to. There's local street food where you can stop in and get a taco or some chicken, some rice and beans. There are tourist shops all around. You can walk up and down the street. You can drop in. You can take souvenirs home. You can walk in and you can sample local produced rums. You can have fresh made ice cream. There are so many things to experience in San Pedro. You can get a Cuban cigar. Anyways, if you'd like guidance on where to go, where to eat, where to shop, all of that stuff, again, that's what I'm here for. I can even set you up to go on food tours where you can go to different restaurants and sample things. All in one day, you can sample 5 or 6 restaurants. All right, so let's move on. Shopping is a great thing. There's a lot to know about shopping, though. Where to shop to get what you want, where not to shop, what to expect, how to buy things inexpensively, how not to break the bank by buying American products per se. Plenty to know about shopping, and I'm happy to share that with you and even answer more questions after the presentation is done today. All right, the next slide. I touched on this a little bit, but dining in restaurants and street food. There is no shortage of restaurants in Ambergris Caye or in Belize, and the culinary experience is very diverse. So you have the opportunity to go out and eat things from lots of different cultures because lots of different cultures have settled in Belize. But you can always get your local food. It doesn't get any more local than obviously having some seafood or some chicken and rice and beans. You can get chicken, rice, and beans on a street corner from a street vendor on a barbecue for 10 Belize dollars. That's 5 US dollars for a quarter chicken, rice and beans, and coleslaw. That's a big meal for $5. When my kids were small, I used to feed my entire family on one of those. Now, of course, they eat one of their own. But these are the experiences that you can have, and you can learn how to experience the local fare, and you can also go to some very nice, more expensive, more traditional restaurant experiences. I can, of course, give you a list of the best restaurants to go to so that you are eating the kind of food that you want and having the type of experience that you want to have. When you come to Belize, if you come to Ambergris Caye, I do suggest you get a cart. A cart rental is going to allow you to drive wherever you want on the island and experience more of the island. If you come and expect to take a taxi cab everywhere, taxi cabs can be a little bit cost prohibitive, especially if you want to go places like Secret Beach. That can be a costly day in a taxi cab. Faster to get there, but a little more costly. You can also go a lot of places by boat. There are water taxis. So I can tell you which water taxis to catch, to go where, and those are generally very affordable and very widely used. Local travel can also be accomplished by our local airlines. We have two. One is called Tropic Air. The other one is called Maya Island Air. And they have flights going all around Belize every day, all day. Now, right now, they've scaled down, obviously, because they're only dealing with our locals because there is no tourism. But when tourism opens back up, they'll ramp back up and they will take you everywhere. But not only that, they'll take you on tours. If you look back at some of my videos at paradisesky.tv, you'll see one where Maya Island Air took me on an excursion over the Blue Hole. We flew over all the islands on the way out, over Caye Caulker, over Lighthouse Caye, over Half Moon Caye. We flew over the atolls, and we got to fly over the Blue Hole several times. It was a beautiful, beautiful trip. If you'd like a peek at that, go back to my YouTube channel and check that out. So let's talk about immigration next. Immigration is a big topic. I could literally do an entire seminar just on immigration, and I probably will in the future. Many of the topics that I'm touching on today on future webinars will be broken out into single webinars so that I can really expand on that information. And know also that I'm available for private consultations. If you'd like to call up and just spend some time with me on the phone and or just meet with me in person when you come to Belize, I'm certainly available to do that. So starting with immigration, let's talk about tourist visas. Tourist visas are given to those holding passports that have an exemption. So if you have an exemption from a visa, that means you don't have to apply for a visa in Belize. When you come in with your passport, you get it stamped and you get an automatic 30-day tourist visa. And you can renew that every 30 days, generally for about 50 Belize dollars, sometimes as high as 100 Belize dollars, depending upon how long you've been into the country. Prices were recently raised on that. So if you'd like the latest information on that, I can send you a document and show you exactly what has happened to the immigration prices. Let's talk about work visas or work permits. If you come to Belize and you plan on working, if you plan on starting a business, or if you even plan on volunteering, you're going to need to have a work permit. Now, it takes a little bit of time to get a work permit. It's a process. You have to have the right documents together. You have to submit it the right way. And you have to pay some money. Right now, that can range anywhere from 3,000 Belize dollars up to 7,000 Belize dollars, depending upon some variations upon how you go through that process. If you talk to me in person about that, I'm happy to fill you in on all those details. But just know, if you're coming to work, if you're coming to start a business, or you're coming to volunteer, you have to have a work permit. If you have a child that you're bringing with you to Belize and that child is going to be going to school, you're also required to get a student visa. Student visa and a work permit allow both of you to stay in the country for a period of time, a work permit for a year, a student visa for the period of time of the school year, without having to go to immigration each month and getting your passport stamped. After a year in Belize, you have the option to apply for your permanent residency. Your permanent residency will take some time. It's not like you're going to go in and apply and get it in 2 months. But if you apply, you submit all the information, it's followed up on properly, maybe you have somebody who can babysit that file and make sure they're checking in on it regularly, you can get that and you can attain your permanent residency. Once you have that, no longer will you need a work permit. And of course, if your kids get a permanent residency status as well, they will not have to have a student visa as well. They have implemented a new program recently, and it's an investor incentive. If you come to Belize and you invest $250,000 or more, you can apply for what we call a temporary permanent residency. And there are a lot of details that go with that. Again, I have a document that I'm happy to send to you to go through that, but I'm not going to spend all the time here right now going through each and every detail. I just want you to know that that's available. After 5 years in the country, you can actually apply for your citizenship as a Belizean. And there are people that have been here long enough that that has happened. Has it happened in 5 years for most of them? No. Some of them it takes much longer, but it is a possibility, and after 5 years you can at least put in your application to make that happen. So let's talk about customs. When you come into Belize, you have to declare everything you're bringing, and when you come into Belize and you declare, they will assign what's called duty or a tax to that. They also apply duty into things that you ship into the country or receive in the country, and shipping into the country is generally a lot slower than we're used to in North America. Can you get Amazon here? Yes, you can, but it's going to take a little bit more time and it's going to cost you a little bit more money in shipping and, of course, the duty you'll have to pay on the products you're going to get. What I advise people to do is bring down some of the stuff that you want with you. And when you have people come down, they can certainly bring in some products for you as well. But understand that customs here is very active. When you receive a shipment, you actually go down to the post office and the postmaster will open your package, go through it, and they will assign a value to that, and they will tell you how much duty you have to pay, and that is due in cash dollars. So make sure you have some cash with you when you go down. All right, let's move on to retirement. A lot of people come to Belize. It is a big retirement destination, but it's not as big a retirement destination as it used to be. And the reason for that is lots of people are now attracted to the country that are younger. We're getting people with younger children. We're getting people that are coming here and living for a couple of years in their 30s, in their 20s, in their 40s. Just know, to meet retirement status in the country of Belize, you only have to be 45 years old, and you have to show that you can invest $2,000 into a bank account in Belize on a monthly basis. If you can show those two things, you can qualify for something called the Qualified Retirement Program. We call it the QRP, and you can live down in Belize. Now, if all you have is $2,000 per month and you're going to come down to Belize and live, I'm going to tell you that that's going to be a stretch, because $2,000 is not easy given our North American lifestyles and what we're used to live on in Belize. However, if you will learn to live like a local, which I'll discuss more later, you can make those dollars stretch quite a ways. But I do want you to know that QRP is a great program out there if you're not going to work, if you're not going to volunteer, if you're not going to start a business. It's a great program. You can ship all of your items down duty-free, including car, golf carts, motorcycles, helicopters, airplanes, personal items, furniture, all of that duty-free. So just know that that program exists. If you'd like more details about how to apply, what the costs are to apply, and how to get that done, certainly I can help you out with that as well. So when you're down in Belize, what about mail delivery? Well, there are private services out there that will give you PO boxes that you can have your mail forwarded to if you want, although that's going to take a while for your mail to get down here. There are services in the United States that you can have your mail delivered to, they'll scan it and send it to you electronically. Or you can simply have people that come and travel down and visit you actually bring your mail to you. Or you can have it forwarded, like I said, to your P.O. box. You can get a P.O. box at the post office. You can get a P.O. box through some private companies out there. I'm happy to tell you how to do that. It's not very hard, and it's not too expensive to do that as well. Cell phones. Let's talk about cell phones. When you bring your cell phone down to Belize, one of the first things you should do when you get in the country, turn your data off. If you don't turn your cellular data off, you're going to get hit up with some charges. Roaming down in Belize can be quite expensive. So what do? You can come down to Belize, and if you have an unlocked phone, you can take your SIM card out, get a SIM card down here, put it in your phone, and you will have a Belize number while you're here to do everything that you want to do while you're here. Many people down here have two phones. They have an American phone, a Canadian phone, and a Belize phone. Some people have phones that have two SIM cards, again, one from the country that they're from, and the other one for Belize. Some people who've been down here a long time, they just have a Belize phone. So if you'd like tips about how to get a good cell phone, what kind of a cell phone maybe to bring with you when you come down, what to say to your provider before you come down to Belize, let me know. I'm happy to answer all the details of how to get that done. All right, let's talk about grocery shopping. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, so I won't spend a ton of time on this slide, but grocery shopping can be a challenge. You can go to a grocery store one day and they can have grapes. And you walk in and they have the most beautiful grapes and you buy them. I'm using that just as an example. It could be Fruit Loops, it could be Twinkies, it could be whatever product you're looking for. I'm just using grapes as an example because grapes are actually pretty easy to get. But let's say you walk in and you buy some grapes and you go home and your family loves it. So next week you go back to the grocery store, same place in the grocery store, no grapes. You go and ask them, when are you going to have grapes again? You know what they'll tell you? Whenever we get them. Products on the shelf and in the supermarkets ebb and flow. Sometimes I like prunes. My kids like prunes. But when I see prunes, I buy a lot of prunes because they may not have them for the next 3 months. You have to learn what the ebb and flow of products are in the supermarkets, and you have to understand that supermarkets are not stocked consistently here like they are in North America. That's just part of life here on the island. That being said, you can also go to the fresh fruit and vegetable stands. You can also get with the Mennonites who come over from the mainland on their boats to the island once a week. They also go to the mainland and set up markets there, and you can get fresh produce. You can get bananas that are actually ripened on the tree. You can get beautiful mangoes. You can get plantains. You can get tomatoes. You can get, the list goes on and on. But truly fresh, organic, nutrient-rich produce and vegetables and food that you just can't get in the United States. So really an amazing experience. If you look down in this picture, you'll see this lady standing here in this picture next to bananas and a pineapple and plantain. First of all, those are apple bananas, and you can only buy them in a bunch like that. And they come ripe, and they're absolutely delicious. And they actually have a taste a little bit like an apple. Those are plantains below it, but this is Maria. Maria is a very famous person on the island because she's been here forever. She's got a kind heart. She's definitely somebody you should meet when you come down here. She runs her own fruit and vegetable stand, and just about everybody on the island knows who she is. But these are the type of personalities that you'll find all around the island, these friendly faces that you get to know that help you out to get what you want as far as groceries, fresh produce, and of course, vegetables. All right, let's talk about business startup and acquisition. There's a lot to know. Matter of fact, this will be an individual webinar because there's a lot to know when starting a business in Belize. Steps to be completed, you have to form an entity. You have to know who to contact to get that done. You have to know the right way to do that. You have to know the costs behind that. You have to know how to incorporate, get your documents drawn up. You have to know how to get your trade license. You have to know how to get your tax ID. You have to know how to get registered with Social Security. You have to know how to deal with employees. You have to know how to set up your bank accounts, your merchant accounts. All of this can be taken for granted, because in the United States or in Canada or other places around the world, that can happen very, very quickly. In Belize, it takes time, it takes money, and it takes persistence, and it takes contacts. I help people do this all the time. I urge you to make sure that I help you walk through this process so that you get the opportunity to get your business to the starting line. Also, if you're considering buying an existing business, many of the businesses for sale down here have no financial history, and people just ask a price for them because they're asking a price for them. So you need to know, how do you actually value that business? How do businesses actually work here? What are the opportunities for business in Belize? What kind of business should you start? What kind of businesses should you avoid? Getting in the cart rental business, not advisable. Getting in the hardware store business, not advisable. You know why? Because there's a cart rental business on every corner along with a hardware store. So I would recommend staying away from that. The next thing you should know when you come down and you're going to start a business is that you have to have a work permit, and you have to get that in place before you start your business. So much to know around business acquisition and startup. If you'd like more information about that, again, feel free to ask me questions in the chat area. And of course, we can talk about that on your private consultation after this slideshow is over. Continuing with business startup though, legal counsel and representation is very important. There's certain attorneys I will point you in the direction of that specialize in this. And I also want to set proper timeframes for how long is it going to take you to actually get up and running and started. I talked about the work permit. I talked about Social Security. You also need to understand labor law. Labor law down in Belize is very different. When you let an employee go in Belize, there are certain obligations that you still maintain to that employee. You need to know exactly what those are and how those will affect you. You also need to understand the tax structure. How do you pay taxes down here when you make money in a business? Generally speaking, that's on a monthly basis. It's 1.75 of your revenues. Again, no end of the year tax return. Real estate. This again is a seminar in itself. I've been in real estate for 30 years, in Belize for over 5 years. There's a lot to know when it comes to real estate in Belize. There have been many people that have been taken advantage of and who have lost money in real estate. And conversely, there have been a lot of people that have come to Belize and made a fortune. Real estate is really the main reason people come to Belize. They want to come down here and they want to buy a vacation home. They want to come down here and they want to invest in something that's going to provide rental income. They want to come down here, they want to start a bed and breakfast. They want to come down here and they want to do Airbnbs. There's so many opportunities in real estate. You can land bank. You can just buy land and hold it. You can buy land and develop it. You can get involved in syndications and do things as groups. There's a lot to know around this, and there's a lot of guidance that you need to make sure that when you pull the trigger, you are doing something that's going to benefit you, and your ROI is going to be what you want. There's lifestyle expectations that you're going to have, and there's ROI expectations. I want to make sure that you meet both of those. So there's buying versus renting. What should you do when you first come to Belize? You know, I tell a lot of people, come down and rent. Rent for 6 months. Figure out which areas you like. Learn the market. Then when you're ready to buy, I'm there to help you. If you talk with another real estate agent and they are telling you, you better hurry, and they are telling you, you got to do this today, you should run the other way. Real estate on the market historically in Belize sits on the market for a while. Now, occasionally a hot deal will come across and it'll sell very quickly, but those are generally off-market deals, and frankly, you rarely hear about those unless you have somebody like myself who knows that that property is even for sale. So don't feel the pressure to be rushed. Make sure you get good information. Make sure you have proper representation, and make sure that you're buying something that's going to serve your needs today and in the future. How's property held in Belize? Well, it's fee simple title. There's no restrictions on foreign ownership. There are no title companies down here, so it's important that you do title searches on your property. But how do you do that? Well, I'm here to guide you and make sure that your titles are properly researched and that you're protected as much as possible and that you get good, clear title when the transaction is done. Stamp tax. What kind of taxes exist down here? What kind of property taxes? Property taxes are very, very low compared to what we're used to in North America. But there is a stamp tax up front, which is 8% of the purchase price, which is due when the title actually transfers to you. So what I tell people is that basically you're paying some of your property taxes up front. Your property taxes going forward from that point on are going to be very, very low compared to what you're used to in the States. There are investment strategies down here that need to be discussed depending upon what your objectives are. Are you a cash flow investor? Are you a speculative investor? Are you a lifestyle investor? Are you a combination of all three? I want to talk to you about what your goals, objectives are, and I want to make sure that I tailor fit that property that you buy or properties to meet those needs. How are you going to invest? Where are you going to get the money? Are you going to refi your house? Are you going to bring all cash down here? Are you going to be looking for financing? Are you going to invest your IRA or 401k? Do you even know how to do that? There are specific strategies and details that you need to know about all that so that you can do it the right way. Taxes on real estate income. What are they? When you collect rental income, if you're a landlord, how do you pay taxes on that? What is the rate? I'm going to tell you this. It's very, very low, but there are no deductions. What are the strategies around that? How do you maximize the dollars you take in versus the taxes you pay? How do you deal with real estate agents down here? How do real estate agents deal with you? Is there an MLS? Well, no, there actually isn't an MLS. And there's no licensing for real estate agents. So how do you know the person you're dealing with if they're qualified? How do you know what their past experiences are? How do you know what their track record is? How do you know what ethics and they follow when they do business? You see, there is no ethics board down here. There is no enforcement. There is no licensing. So basically, it's the Wild West. So you want to make sure you're dealing with somebody you know, you like, you trust, and has a good understanding of the market and how things really work down here. There is no MLS. People call me all the time. They say, hey, send me all the condos under $250,000. Well, that's good if you have a market knowledge of all the condos currently on the market, and you can put that email together, but that's going to take hours and hours of work and research. At home in the United States, all I used to do, I'd type it into the MLS, and boom, I'd send an email. You'd have 20 properties in your email box in 5 minutes. Not only that, you could email me back, tell me which ones you're interested in. I could create a map to all those properties. It would print out a sheet, and boom, we could be in the car that afternoon looking at those properties just like that. Things in Belize move much slower. It's a much more cumbersome process, but it means that things and opportunities are available for longer because the market does move slower. I believe that someday, in the not too distant future, there will be an MLS. I believe, if I have anything to do with it, there will be licensing. I believe that the real estate board will actually have some oversight and be able to discipline agents when they do things that they shouldn't do. But as of today, that doesn't exist. But someday it will. Let's talk about legal considerations when you buy land. When you buy land, you got to make sure, again, that title search is done correctly. You got to make sure you understand what, if any, back taxes are due on that. You got to make sure you understand what the financing terms are and what that's going to obligate you to. You got to understand what are your future costs for environmental, for surveys, for construction costs, for permits. There's so much to know around this. Again, that's why I'm going to do an entire webinar just on real estate in the very, very near future. If you're interested in real estate, make sure you sign up for that. All right, let's talk about healthcare next. Everybody wants to know about healthcare because guess what? At some point in time, you're going to get sick. I'm going to get sick. Your kids are going to get sick. What kind of healthcare is available in Belize? Well, there is healthcare, and it is good. Is it great? No. Is it where we'd like it to be? No. Is it making progress all the time? Yes. But if you live on the island of Ambergris Caye or the beautiful island of Caye Caulker, there's not even a hospital on these islands. There are clinics, but there are no hospitals. There are doctors, but there are no hospitals. So if you have a need for an actual hospital, you have to go over to the mainland. On the mainland, there are two hospitals. One is called Carl Huesner. It's a public hospital. The other one is called Belize Medical Associates, and it is a private hospital. And they're very affordable. Some medical services in Belize are actually free. You just donate when you leave. And that includes your medications. These clinics that exist on the island of Ambergris Caye, for example, they're good. The doctors that are on the island are good. You can get good medical care for most things. If things get complicated, if things get serious, you're going to have to go over to the mainland. Maybe you're going to have to fly to Mexico to a place like Merida, has very, very high quality medical care. Or maybe you're going to have to fly back to the States. One of the things I always recommend to people, and we'll talk about this more in insurance in just a few minutes, is to make sure you have medical evacuation insurance. Again, I'll talk more about that in a second. So let's talk about COVID-19. COVID-19 in Belize has been taken very, very seriously. Matter of fact, right now, there are no officially diagnosed cases in the country of Belize. The borders are closed, the airport is closed, and the country is taking this very seriously. And the reason why is because they understand that the medical system here could be very, very easily overwhelmed. As an easily overwhelmed system, it is vital that they keep COVID cases to a minimum. Because if this system gets overwhelmed, it means that any other medical needs that are out there that are needing to be tended to are not going to be able to, because they're going to be overwhelmed with the COVID cases. So recently, some advancements. We got a new clinic on the island from Belize Medical Associates at Ambergris Caye. It's a brand new clinic. It's beautiful. Has a helipad on it as well. Good medical care, beautiful facility. We're very excited about that. And they fly over the doctors from the mainland on a regular schedule so they can actually be in that clinic a day or two a week. So a big step forward for us there. Recently, the island of Ambergris Caye got an ambulance. You'll see that picture on the slide. We got a couple new fire engines recently. So this means that we have fire protection and emergency response where it didn't exist before. We also have better care from a clinical perspective than we've had in the past. So again, moving in the right direction. Is there a need for better and more comprehensive medical care and more facilities? Absolutely. Let's talk about healthy lifestyle. Healthy lifestyle when it comes to healthcare is important. They say prevention is better than a cure. Prevention is what's going to keep you out of the care of the medical providers. So coming down to Belize, you'll notice a couple things when you get here. You notice that, guess what? Going for a run here, a little bit difficult. Not as easy as it is in the States. It's a little bit dusty. The pollution can be a little high at times because of all the golf carts driving around, for example, on the island. Traffic in the city can be a little daunting, and the pollution as well. There's no real paths to run on. Welcome to Belize. This is what happens. Many, many times in Belize, you'll be sitting around and the power will just go off. And sometimes it'll stay off for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 3 hours. You never really know. But we make a joke in Belize that Belize didn't pay their power bill. All of the power in Belize comes from Mexico. Literally, we buy all of our electricity from Mexico, and it comes into Belize. And that electricity is actually quite expensive. So one of the things that drives up the cost of living in Belize is expensive electricity. But anyways, we're back online. I digress. Let's get back into healthcare and keep things going. Ready? 1, 2, 3, back on. All right, so we were at Triple R, I believe, is where I left off. Triple R is a new ambulance service. It's privately owned. It was just brought onto the island of Ambergris Caye. We got a couple new fire engines as well. So the primary access to first responders that never existed before now exists. We're very excited about that, and that is progress, and it is moving things in the right direction. But we still need to continue to move things in the right direction, and that, of course, is opportunity and it's something that you need to be aware of before you move to Belize, is exactly where the healthcare system is and what that's going to mean to you. As far as pharmacies and medications, what you need to know is that you can get just about any medication down in Belize. Just about. Not everything. But when you come down here, you don't need to go to a doctor and get a prescription. You can actually just walk into the pharmacy, tell them what your situation is, and they'll give you the medication. The medications are generally very inexpensive as well. So it's a nice convenience. If you've got an ongoing medical situation and you're on medication of any sort, send me what your medication is. I can do a check down here and let you know if indeed it is available. If not, you need to make sure that you bring ample supplies of that from the States with you when you come. Let's talk about health insurance. I have a great contact down here. Is a gentleman. He's actually from the UK. He's been doing health insurance for a bazillion years, worldwide health insurance. He helps people figure out if it's a good deal for them or not. At the very least, I recommend you probably sit down and meet with him when you come down, talk about your health insurance options. Secondarily, I'd also recommend that, without a doubt, you figure out how to have emergency evac insurance. So if something big and bad happens, you're on a jet flying back to the States or to Merida or somewhere where there's better quality care than in the country of Belize. So that being said, let's move on to our next slide. Now I see somebody just typed in that they can't see the slides. I'm going to just hopefully you all can hear and see me and see the slides at this point in time. I am adjusting everything I can on my side to make sure I'm seeing the slides right now. I'm seeing myself. Hopefully that means you can see me as well. If not, let me know in the comments and we'll do what we can to adjust that. Let's move along to crime and safety. I get a lot of questions generally on a daily basis. Will, is it safe? Is it safe for me and my family down there? What does crime look like? Because you hear the statistics. When you look at the crime per capita in Belize, statistically speaking, it can be a little shocking. Most of the crime here, as a matter of fact, 95% of all homicides are gang-on-gang related, and they are in Belize City. Crimes against expats are extremely low. Do they happen once in a while? Yes. Generally not the very serious ones. Petty crime will happen here and there. If you leave your cell phone on a table and you walk away, could it be missing when you come back? Absolutely. If you're an expat and you're out at 2 o'clock in the morning in places where you shouldn't be doing things you shouldn't be doing, could something bad happen to you? Absolutely. So you got to exercise some common sense. I generally like to give people safety tips saying, you know what, get up early and go home early. There's no need to be out after midnight in Belize. It's a different crowd, it's a different environment, it's a different energy, and it's not something you need to be out participating in. Frankly, most of the fun is had during the day in Belize anyway. So that being said, let's move away from crime and statistics. Of course, you can look that stuff up on the internet. It's over sensationalized. Do not let all of the stuff that's said about crime in Belize scare you in any way, shape, or form. Frankly, I've never felt safer in any country than I did in Belize. All right, let's move along to employment and volunteer work. Employment's a very interesting thing in the country. You cannot actually come down and take a job away from a Belizean. So if you're going to come down here and be a waiter or a waitress, that's a hard job to get. The reason why is because it's very easily filled by a Belizean citizen. And there are many others that are the same way. What you can do is you can bring down your resume, your qualifications, your certificates, etc., showing that you have a unique set of skills and or qualifications that maybe most of the people in the country do not have. And an employer can hire you as a result of that and say that they want to hire you because your skill sets are not readily available in the country. With that, you have a sponsor. And with that sponsor, you can then get a work permit and you can actually get a job. What you should know about jobs, down here is jobs pay a fraction of what you're used to in the States. If you're used to getting $150,000 a year for something in the States, you might get 30 to 40 here in Belize. And that's just what the market will bear. So make sure that you are prepared for that. If you're going to come down and get a job, make sure you have proper expectations, proper savings to navigate that sort of scenario. Sponsorship is gained by getting an employer to say in a letter to labor that you have a set of skills that they need, that you're unique, that they're going to employ you, that you bring value to the country, and that somehow it's going to benefit Belizeans and the country as a whole. If you come down and you are become an employer and you're going to train and hire Belizean citizens, it's much easier to get a work permit because the country obviously wants more of its citizens trained, more of its citizens employed. So definitely a good route to go starting your own business. There are costs and there are time frames for getting work permits. As I mentioned earlier, I can guide you exactly how to do that. But like I said earlier, anywhere from 2,500 Belize, 2,000 Belize, all the way up to 7,000 Belize is your cost for getting a work permit. Time frames on that can be as short as 2 weeks all the way up to 6 months. So there's a lot of variables in there, a lot of factors that need to be considered. I can certainly talk to you about those details if you have further questions. All right, so let's talk about some expat survival tips. There are tips for survival as an expat. Every single day in Belize, we see somebody go home. And oftentimes they're going home because they didn't take care of their health, or they ran out of money, or they had some negative experiences because they didn't understand what they were doing or were acting in ways they shouldn't have been acting. These are some general expat survival tips. There are a lot more that you learn as you spend time in Belize, but there is a social culture and etiquette that has to be respected here. You need to not come down here with any sort of an arrogant attitude, like you're going to come down here and teach everybody how things really need to be done or that you know more. You're a guest in this country. These people are beautiful, they're smart, they understand their country, they understand how things are done, and they can be your greatest allies, but they can also make things difficult for you, especially if you're offensive, rude, or disrespectful. Understanding what the cultural differences are, understanding and respecting that you are a guest in this country are two tips that I would give you when you try to integrate, start businesses here, live here, vacation frequently here. You just can't know enough about this, and I will be glad to talk with you about those in detail or answer questions when we're done with the presentation. Living like a local is very important to your pocketbook. It's very easy to come down here and spend lots of money, especially if you want to maintain your North American lifestyle. If you're going to come down here and run your air conditioner 24 hours a day, you're going to get a huge utility bill, just like I did. My first month in Belize, I came in, I turned my AC on, I didn't turn it off for the first month. After that first month was over, guess what? $1,400 US for my first utility bill. And that was just electricity. They didn't include water and everything else I had to pay. So very, very expensive lesson. I pass that on to everybody. Come here, learn to let the wind be your friend, learn how to open up the windows and win, learn how to deal with the mosquitoes and the no-see-ums, the sand fleas. When you do that, learn when to run your AC, learn how to use fans. There's just lots to know, how to eat, where to shop, when to buy things, when not to buy things, how to drink. If you're into alcohol, drinking rum and beer is relatively inexpensive. If you're going to come down here and drink Grey Goose, which darn it happens to be one of my favorite. If you're going to come down here and drink wine, which darn it, I actually like wine too, it's expensive. So you may have to learn to drink rum and beer if you're going to drink alcohol rather than some of the finer things. And or every time you come into the country, go through the duty free and bring some in with you. You can bring up to 4 bottles. So learning to live on a budget is an important expat tip. Figure out what you're going to have in the bank every month. budget accordingly, and then plan to spend more. Your budget overruns are very, very common here. Just when you think you got your budget under control, another expense that you're not counting on will hit you and it can throw you off balance. So always make sure you have good reserves, make sure you run a good budget, make sure you underestimate what your budget's going to be, and you will do absolutely fine down here and you'll have a great time because you won't be worried about money. Let's talk about tipping. When you walk into a restaurant here, very often tips aren't even expected. Now, should you give a tip? Absolutely. Do I always tip? Absolutely. But a lot of places, it's just not something they're used to. Now, as tourism continues to grow, as time goes on, are they becoming more and more expected? Yes. Should you tip? Absolutely. But you're going to tip anywhere from 10 to 15%. Some people feel really generous. They tip 20% down here. But generally 10 to 15% is adequate and appreciated. And note this, some restaurants and bars actually take half of the tip that you give to the waiter or waitress, and the waiter or waitress gets the other half. So if you want the waiter or waitress to get more of a tip, you can adjust your tips accordingly. And it's certainly a way, if you're going to be a regular at a place, to make sure you get good service going forward and make good friends. So tip away. Also, if you will use a little Creole and or Spanish, learn some of the local expressions. Don't be in a hurry. Go slow, but keep moving. You've got to understand that this is island time. You have to understand that when you finish up your meal, you're probably not going to get your bill. You know why? Because they're not going to rush you. In North America, you finish your meal and boom, your bill's on the table, sometimes before you even finish your meal. Here in Belize, you have to ask for it. You have to wait. So don't go into a restaurant and be in a hurry. You're going to find yourself getting frustrated. Don't expect things in Belize to be on your time frame. Understand that island time is a real thing countrywide, and it's something that you're going to need to adapt to, and you're never going to change it. Last thing, one of the most important things is don't become a professional drinker. It is really, really easy to drink a lot of alcohol in Belize. Everywhere you go, there's a bar, and at those bars are where all your friends are. Everybody sits at the bar. Heck, there's play areas for the kids at a lot of the bars. There's not a lot to do if you're not out on the water, if you're just hanging around town to do, if you want to be out and be social, but go sit in a bar. So when you're in those bars, make sure you temper your drinking. Don't become a professional. It's very, very easy to do, and a lot of people do get caught up in drinking way too much, and it'll be bad for your pocketbook, and it's certainly not good for your health as well. So just keep that in the back of your mind and know that when you come here, it is kind of a cultural thing to drink every single day. As a matter of fact, Belicans, one of their slogans is no working during drinking hours. So that should say enough to you right there. Let's move along to our next topic. Let's talk about children and education. Some people come down here and they have kids. I moved to Belize. I had 3 young children, and I had to figure out where they're going to go to school. What are their options? Well, there's private education options for children down here. Some of them are fantastic. Probably the best private education option on the island of Ambergris Caye is called the Island Academy. But we found out just recently that Lady Dixie, who is the founder of that school and has run it for a long time and done a great job educating a lot of our children, has decided that it's time to retire. And that school just happens to sit on one of the most valuable pieces of land on the entire island. So I think she's going to take that money and go enjoy the rest of her retirement. And certainly she's earned that. She's done a great job with the kids and bringing a high quality education to the island over the years. But what's going to happen going forward? Well, the other private schools on the island certainly are going to thrive and have more attendance and have more resources to grow their curriculum and their teacher base and accommodate that. Many of the parents of students at the Island Academy are looking at solutions to carry on the same type of education that Island Academy has offered. They are going to be around for 1 more year, as I understand, but after next year, that education opportunity will be gone. But what is that education like? It's good. It's a good curriculum. My children did not suffer any way, shape, or form as a result of that. They liked going to that school. It's located right on the beach. It's a beautiful setting. But once children's education gets to the high school level here in Belize, it becomes a little bit more challenging. It's not quite at the level of high school, college prep that we're used to in North America. What people do to supplement that is they go online, they do homeschooling, and they bring that educational supplementation into the mix to make sure the kids are prepared for college when that time comes. So, what are there to do with kids in Belize? Well, obviously, there's beaches and there's the ocean. So, kids love to be out on the water, they love to be in the water, they love to be on the beach, and there's lots of kids to play with. There's playgrounds, there are things to do like martial arts, there's soccer, um, and there's dance, there's other art forms that they can participate in, and those opportunities are growing more and more. And if you have a specialization in that area and you'd like to bring more things for children to do on the island, certainly that would be appreciated. So know that kids love it in Belize. They have a good time. Education is good, and it's getting better all the time. What about child safety? You know, in the United States, if I used to take my kids to the park and turn my back for 5 minutes, heck, you could have three parents calling social services on you saying you weren't watching your kids. Here in Belize, it's a little bit different. Here, the mentality is that it takes a village to raise a child. It's much more relaxed. You can take your kids to the beach and you can let them run up and down the beach. You don't have to be a helicopter parent here. Everybody, after a while, knows you. They know your children. Everybody got eyes out. Crimes on children here are almost non existent. And you feel at ease here being a parent. Your kids get a freedom that, frankly, I think is very healthy for them to have. And they get to explore their boundaries a little bit, and they get to play and be a little more free and a little more social. So my kids certainly benefited from that. Many of the other expat parents that I know certainly would concur with that. If you have more questions about what to do, where to go, or how to enjoy times with your children in Belize, I have videos on that on paradisesky.tv, but you can also ask me more questions about that. All right, let's talk about pets. Everybody loves their pets, right? But here in Belize, pets are a little bit different, especially dogs. Dogs are seen by Belizeans as security. So many times they'll find the meanest, nastiest, loudest dog they can, and they'll put them in the yard next to their house or wherever they're living. And they want that dog to bark, and they want that dog to bite you if you come in their yard. So these dogs are and have been trained to be guard dogs, and they can be a bit aggressive. Um, if you're out on the island and you're walking around, you'll also notice that there are stray dogs everywhere. Many of these dogs are abandoned, they're not well taken care of, they're in need of a good home. We have a place on the island called Saga, and there's other Humane Society opportunities for pets in the city. These are very often overwhelmed, underfunded, and are doing their best, but they need help. When I see people in Belize and they come down and they bring their pets, I understand why you bring your pet because you love them and you already have them. If you don't have a pet and you want a pet, don't get one and bring it to Belize. Come down to Belize and adopt. We have plenty of dogs that need a home. We have plenty of cats that need a home. I have a cat and two dogs that live with me, and all of them came off the street of Belize, and they're fantastic pets. And these pets are so happy that they're no longer living on the street and that they've got a great place to live and a loving family. So definitely come down here and do that. Understand there's places to take care of your pets during the day if you've got something to do or going to be busy. We have a place on the island called Pampered Paws, which is fantastic. You'll see them walking down the beach right here with dogs, and every single day you see them walking down the beach with everybody's dogs who they're caring for that day. You can also kennel them there if you're going on a trip, and they will also train your dog if you want them to be more well-mannered, because they're very, very good at that. Well, veterinary care here is limited. Sometimes on the island we have a vet, other times we don't have a vet. There's always some vet techs on the island who can do basic stuff. Um, Spay, neuter sometimes, um, vaccinations, some basic care, triage care for pets. Um, but we need better pet care and we need a full-time veterinarian down here. But we do have vets that come and go and they let us know generally on Facebook when they're going to be in town. And that's a good time to get your dog in to see the vet or pet, whatever it may be. Vaccinations, you do need to vaccinate your pets here. Um, there are all the diseases you can imagine in the States, and there's more down here as well because of the ticks, sometimes the mosquitoes, and of course there's parvo, there's rabies, there's all sorts of other things that circulate around, and of course we have a large stray dog population. So come down here, make sure your pets are vaccinated. If you'd like to know how to travel with your pet, there's quite a bit to know about that. If you're going to bring your pet down here or get an emotional support dog or animal, or if you already have one, talk to me about that. I'm happy to advise you about how to travel to and from with your pet and or how to import your pet to the country. Um, there are leash laws in Belize. I wish they were more enforced because a lot of dogs are off leash here, but there actually is a leash law and you are supposed to have a collar and a tag on your pet. So be part of the solution and show people that that's what they should do. Keep your dog on a leash when possible, and also put a collar on them. All right, tours and leisure. We're getting towards the end of the presentation here, and then you'll be able to ask all your questions. Tours and leisure are a big part of coming to Belize, but a lot of people get hustled. One of the first things that happened to me when I came to Belize is I got hustled. I had a gentleman come up to me and I said, you know, I want to go deep sea fishing. He said, no problem. Let's go deep sea fishing. And I won't tell you all the details of what happened, but basically he hustled me out of $100 US and I never got to go deep sea fishing. So come here, let me guide you in that process. Let me hook you up with well-known, licensed, permitted tour providers that are going to give you the best experience. Very often I go on the tours with my clients to make sure that things are going to go well. Happy to set you up and make sure you have an awesome time with the right providers. So there's adventures to do on the mainland, there's adventures to do out on the Keys, and there's adventures to do on the various reef locations as well. I'll tell you which ones to go on. I have contacts that can tell you which ones to go on. It depends upon a lot of things, what you're looking for, what your budget is, how many days you're going to be in the country. But I really, really love to advise people on what to do is this. It's a real passion of mine. And of course, it's a lot of fun. All right, so when you come to Belize, where do you live, where do you invest, and why? What the first thing you should know is you invest in the path of progress. You invest where the money is. So where is the money in Belize? Well, the most money is on the island of Ambergris Caye. It is the largest island. It's 23 miles long. It's just off the coast of Belize. It is where San Pedro, you know, the little town that Madonna sings about in her song. It is a beautiful place, and it is where the most tourists come and go from. When the most tourists come and go from a location, it means that's where the dollars flow. When the most tourists come to a place, also a lot of tourists decide that they want to live there in the future. Now, other areas of Belize are becoming a lot more popular. If you look at the San Ignacio and the Cayo district, really becoming a lot more popular. If you look at Placencia, becoming a lot more popular. If you look at the Corzal area, becoming a lot more popular because of the easy access to Mexico and, of course, the lower cost of living there. There are different flavors of Belize for different people. I get contacted from people say, you know what, I want to live in isolation in the jungle. I want to live on the west side of Ambergris Caye where the waters are calm and clear and there's no sargassum. I want to live on the east side of Ambergris Caye and I want to fish and go to the reef every single day. I want to live in Caye Caulker where it's a little slower a little more of a chill atmosphere. I want to develop here and I want to open a bed and breakfast. There are so many different options. You just have to figure out, what do you want to do? What do you want your life to look like? What do you want your ROI to be? And tell me that, and then let me guide you as to some of the places you should go see and some of the places you should consider. And I also need to know, what's your time frame? What's your budget? How much cash do you have? What kind of financing options are you going to need, if any? Look at the various areas that are out there. I recommend you look at Ambergris Caye. I recommend you look at Caye Caulker. I recommend you at least spend a half a day in Belize City, checking out Belize City. There's some great restaurants there, some great things to do and see. San Ignacio in the Cayo district, like I mentioned, absolutely beautiful. Beautiful, the mountains, beautiful jungle, and of course, a different energy. Placencia, Hopkins, Corozal, all areas you should consider going. So when you're planning your trip, contact me, tell me what kind of experience you have, and I'll tell you where to stay, for how long, and what to do once you get there. Then we can also discuss your investment objectives, and I can guide you in that so that you're making the best decision for your financial and for your lifestyle future. So that concludes the presentation for today. Sorry it went a little bit long. Sorry about the Wi-Fi going out due to our power failure, but you know what? That was a real moment, and it gives you a look into what life is really like in Belize. The power goes off. It happens. Things move slow. Things happen. Things don't always go as expected. Island time is a real thing, but we're here now, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up this for some question and answers. So whatever you want to ask, go ahead and type it into the message. When you type it in there, I'm happy to sit here and answer those. And you won't only be benefiting yourself, everybody else will get to hear the answers to your questions. So ask away. Don't make me just sit here and stare at the camera either. All right, we got our first question. What do you think is going to go on with Guatemala? That's a great question. Many of you may have heard that Guatemala thinks that they have rights to part, if not all, of Belize. This has been an ongoing argument for a while. If you research the history of it, you'll see that, frankly, they don't really have that much of a case. Those people that I've talked to that are in the know about this don't believe it's going to be a major issue. If they did somehow win the rights to some of Belize, it would be the less popular parts of Belize, not the most popular destinations in Belize. But I do not believe, in my humble opinion, that that's actually going to happen. I believe that'll be settled out here in the next couple of years, and I believe that we'll still be able to exist as a peaceful neighbor with Guatemala. I know a lot of people that go over to Guatemala on a frequent basis. They say it's beautiful. They love it. People are nice. It's only when you hear about those over-dramatized skirmishes on the border that it becomes a real issue. So I think everything's going to be fine with Guatemala. Next question. Is the secret beach area expanding in the near future? Well, it's expanding, and it was expanding up until COVID-19 hit. That doesn't mean that the real estate market out there has stopped. As a matter of fact, I know several transactions that are in the works right now of people buying land out there. Secret Beach is an interesting place to buy and invest. I believe there is a future for people out there. There is financing available on a lot of properties out there. It is a relatively low price point as well. It's a good entry-level place. Now, there are no utilities out there, so you're off the grid. You have to figure out how you're going to live out there, where you're going to buy your groceries, because it's a good trip to buy groceries, how you're going to get power, where you're going to get your water. So you have to look at things like solar. You have to look at generators. You have to look at cisterns and catching the rain for your water. You have to look at the possibility in dry times of possibly buying your water. You have to look about how you're going to get to and from town, how you're going to deal with grocery shopping. What about mosquitoes? What about safety? These are all just considerations, but a lot of people are hedging their bets on the secret beach area, and it's becoming more and more popular, and certainly development, especially on the beach itself, is really coming along quite quickly. Let's move on to the next question. I'm interested in relaxing and just chilling and enjoying myself in retirement. What's a good place to start? Wow, it's a great question. Um, that depends upon your budget. If you're really budget conscious and you're looking for a place to just chill in Belize, um, I would recommend taking a look in San Ignacio area. I would look into Corozal. Hopkins is very affordable, but these are slower areas, and by slower I mean not a lot going on. I mean San Ignacio certainly has some stuff going on, but Corozal a little more sleepy. Hopkins very sleepy. Um, Placencia is a place to consider as well. It's a little more cost effective there for people than Ambergris Caye, but the number one retirement destination for people to come and hang out and chill is still today Ambergris Caye. But the cost of living there is the highest in the country as well. So I guess the way to answer that is what's your budget and really what do you want that lifestyle to look like? Are you a scuba diver? If you're a scuba diver, I'd recommend being on Ambergris Caye because we have the easiest access to the reef. Or maybe Caye Caulker. Caye Caulker is a little bit more affordable, a little bit more chill, and very close to the reef as well. Um, Ask me more about that later on, and I'm happy to even give you more guidance than that. But I hope that answer I gave you helped out. What's our next question? I see somebody's typing. That's good. Okay. Somebody just asked about Atlantic Bank and that they've had issues. Well, you're absolutely right. There has never been a bank failure in Belize until something happened. And what happened was the international bank in Belize, called Atlantic, um, closed down, for lack of a better term. Now, there's a lot of details around that, but this was our international way of bringing money to and from Belize. It was very easy to wire money in and out. A lot of us had money in that bank, which they're working on getting some of that money back to us. But as of right now, the International Money Bank, which allowed you to keep US dollars in it rather than Belizean dollars, does not exist. Now, there are other options, which I can, talk to you about. There are other options for international banking, and I'm happy to do that. But as of right now, Atlantic Bank International is not open for business. Atlantic Bank for locals, Atlantic Bank for Belize dollars is open. It's operational. A lot of people bank with it. Very reliable, very good bank to bank with. But there are other options as well. There's Heritage Bank, there's Scotia, there's Belize Bank, and there's Key Bank as well. So there's quite a few different options out there. Each have pros and cons. Happy to talk with you more about that offline. So, next question. Have you visited Salt Life Resort? If so, do you feel it's a good retirement? Okay, I have not been to it specifically. I am aware of Salt Life. I know who the developers are. I know who the salespeople are. I know the area. I know what their vision is. And so far, I'm pretty impressed with the way they've proceeded. They're investing good money in it. Everything they've said they're going to do at this point, they've done. Many developments in Belize have a lot of dreams, a lot of aspirations, but they run out of money. They don't do the right thing by the people that invest. Their time frames get completely out of line, and people's money sits there and stagnates. So there's a lot to be aware of when you're investing in a new development. Salt Life so far, I think, is on the right track. Before I gave you a total thumbs up, though, I'd want to do some more research on your behalf, and I'd want to make sure that you're doing the right thing for your dollars. The area Salt Life is located in is actually south. So it's the south part of the island. There's basically, when you talk about Ambergris Key, you talk about the south part, you talk about central, which is San Pedro, you talk about the north, and then you talk about the west side. So the east side, which has the reef, is the side that was developed first. The west side is starting to develop, especially in the Secret Beach area. Um, the north side has lots of resorts, and a lot of development is pushing that way. A lot of bigger development. That's where Margaritaville is going to be going. The south side has been a little sleepier. It's a little bit more residential, more micro resorts going in. Salt Life is going in down there. Another one called La Serene is going in down there as well, which has huge aspirations. But again, there's lots to know when you're investing in new development. So please, before any of you all do any of that, make sure we're having a very detailed conversation and that you're making an educated decision. Next question. Is opening a bank account and having funds wired on a monthly basis from a stateside bank to a bank there doable? Absolutely. No problem. And it's actually advisable, especially if you're going to be in the retirement program, because then you can show that $2,000 a month requirement is being met, and it keeps you qualified for your qualified retirement program status. So yes, that can be done. Yes, that can be set up. But understand this about banking: it takes time, it takes proper documentation, and it takes some assistance. Excuse me, a bug was flying around my head. It takes some assistance to get your banking relationships and accounts open. So if you're looking at coming down here and you want to get that process started, please talk to me about that, and I'll tell you exactly what documents to put together and how to get the ball rolling. These are great questions, by the way. You all are asking fantastic questions. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to sit with people and answer questions like this. So really, don't feel like anything is a bad question here. I really want to be a resource. I see our next question's coming. Good question. The question is, you talk about documents a lot. What do you think we should bring? Well, it depends. I will tell you this as a general rule: bring duplicates of everything. Okay? And for example, if you're going to bring your birth certificate, make sure you have multiple stamped, certified copies of your birth certificate. Bring your bank records. Make sure you have a couple copies of them. Make sure you bring your passport, of course. Make sure it's up to date. Make sure it has enough pages left in it. You're going to need to bring items like recent utility bills. So bring a couple recent utility bills that show where you've lived. If you've leased property or rented property, bring a recommendation from people that have rented to you, and also bring a copy of your lease. If you can get a reference letter from a bank, bring it, or a personal banker, bring it. If you can get a reference letter from an accountant or an attorney you've dealt with, bring it. And there's many more documents, but those are a good start. If you are going to get a bank account, a bank will give you a detailed list of which documents you're going to need. Once you get that list, I'm also going to advise you to modify that list a bit and bring some extra stuff. Another thing you should definitely bring a police report when you come. So make sure right before you leave, you get a police report. Make sure you bring your medical records. Make sure you bring your vaccination records for yourself, your kids, and your pets. Make sure you bring your marriage certificate if you got one. So, I mean, the list goes on and on. It's pretty comprehensive. That's why I talk about documents a lot, because many people get down here and they realize, oh, I didn't bring that. And it happens to everybody. And then it's an expensive, cumbersome, time-wasting process to get those documents down here. Okay? So talk to me about documents, and let's start the process of doing all the things that you want to do ahead of time so that things actually happen in a time efficient way. All right, next question. This is a good question as well. Once things open up, what's the best time of year to visit? And is 3 weeks a decent amount of time for an initial visit? Good question. Yes, 3 weeks is long enough for an initial visit. That's going to allow you plenty of time to see the country. And I recommend, if you're not sure where you want to be yet, I recommend you do see the country. And I can help you plan out an itinerary so that you know how many days should I stay in Placencia, Will? How many days should I stay on Ambergris Key? What should I use as my home base? Should I take the water taxi? Should I fly? Should I get a taxi driver? How should I? Where should I stay when I get to these various places? I can advise you about all that. 3 weeks is a good time frame. That's very encouraging when I hear people that are that serious about their future that they're willing to spend that amount of time down here doing proper research and letting me guide them. So 3 weeks is great. The best time of year to visit. Wow. Depends upon what you're looking for. If you're looking for the best deals, September and October. The reason why September and October is the sleepy time in Belize. It's hurricane season, it's the rainy season. A lot of businesses and hotels slow down. They do renovations at that time of year. Some even close down and go on vacation. But you can come down here. It's not crowded at all. You can have a great time. You can save money, and you're going to get a little bit more of a local feel rather than a tourist experience. So that's a great time to come if you're looking to save money and have a local experience. I love the summer months. Summer months, the weather's great. There's a good amount of people here, but it's not crazy busy. It's just a good all-around time to be here. So I like June and July an awful lot. As far as weather, April and May tend to be the best months to be down there because the wind, which I say the wind is your friend, the wind is blowing nice and hard during those months, keeps the bugs off you, keeps you nice and cool. So I love those months. But Christmas and New Year's, wow, if you've got the money and you don't mind a lot of people, what an amazing time to get out of the cold and come down and swim in 83-degree water and be in 83-degree weather. It's amazing. So that gives you kind of a cross section of the different times to come and why you might want to come in those different times. They're all amazing. It just depends upon, again, what type of experience are you looking for? For me, it was always get me out of the snow and cold. So whenever it was snowing and cold, wherever I was, I wanted to get down to Belize. Ready for the next question. All right, here comes our next question. Okay, this question is, how are the churches as well as the nightlife for a single older gentleman? Great question. Okay, the churches, there are several churches on the island. There are the Mormon churches are there. The JWs are there. Jehovah's Witnesses. There is the Catholic Church. There, the biggest church on the island is what? What is it called? What? Sagebrush. My gosh, I can't believe I forgot that. Sagebrush. Sagebrush is the largest church. They just built a brand new church. It's right centrally located. It's huge. It's non-denominational. Very, very well attended by a lot of people on the island. But there's a church for everybody's flavor and style. But if you're looking for a bigger social gathering, more of a networking scene, Sagebrush is going to be the one to go to. It was actually founded by some people out of Albuquerque. The two people that actually got it started were from Colorado. And it's been a great vision. They do a lot of good in the community. It is very well run. I've been to it many times. I like it. And I recommend if you're going to try out a church, definitely make that on your short list. But I would also go and see some of the other smaller churches as well to get more of a local experience. Now let's talk about a single life for an older gentleman. The answer to that question is yes. Plenty to do for a single older gentleman. Yes, I'm smiling. All right. Is it smarter to live in or around expats, or would you recommend living in other areas? Okay, this is a great question. We're used to, in the States and Canada, we're used to segregation of sorts. I mean, there's rich neighborhoods, there's poor neighborhoods, there's neighborhoods that more Chinese people live in, there's Italian neighborhoods, there's gated communities, there's retirement communities, there's all this segregation. Well, in Belize, you know where we live? We live amongst each other everywhere. So where I live in Belize, I have a very successful, wealthy developer that lives across the street from me. But then I also have next door to him a very, very low income local Belizean couple. And then everything in between. So we all mix together. We're all get along. We all think that there is no need to live in different areas from each other. We all live together. So I hope that answers your question. You live where you want to live. You just find an area that feels good to you and you live, and you don't have to worry much about safety. If you have a house and you want a good guard dog, you get a dog and a dog barks, nobody's going to come and bother you, because when dogs bark, people stay away. It just depends on how you want to live. Do you want to live in a condo complex? Do you want to live in a resort? Do you want to live in a single family home? Do you want to live on the beach? Do you want to live in town? Do you want to live on the west side and be isolated and more of a solitary existence? There are so many different ways to live. You just have to figure out what's going to fit for you. So I hope that answers your question. I'm trying to make sure that what you get from that is that you just have to decide that it's life by design and where you'd like to live and what's important to you and what your budget is. And then I can point you in the right direction to live where you want to live. There are plenty of places where expats live if you want to be around just expats. And there are neighborhoods like I live in where everybody mixes together. And there are plenty of areas where it's more Belizean than expats. But it's not because anybody's prohibited from going there. Anybody can live anywhere they want. And we like it that way. So next question. What else do you guys want to know? You can ask about anything. Heck, you can ask me, where should you eat? You can ask me, what's the beer like? You can ask me, what's my favorite street food to eat? You can ask me anything. No questions off the table. And yes, that was my dog. He wanted to ask a question too. And his question is, can we go for a walk now? All right, we got another question being formulated as we sit. So I'm sure it's going to be a great question. Okay. Do you have any information on the north side of Key Cocker? Yes, I do. The north side of Key Cocker is developing quite fast. Key Cocker on the north side just 5 years ago was almost completely overgrown with vegetation and had very, very little structures present, no roads, and it was boat access only. Today, development is happening pretty quickly on that side, and it is beautiful. It is gorgeous. It is a different lifestyle because it is boat access only. Um, I'm maybe someday in the future they'll build a bridge from the other side of the island over. I doubt that because, frankly, the split is such a great area for boats to come and go and great place to swim. So I don't know if that's going to happen anytime near future, but the north side of Key Cocker is gorgeous, especially if you get on the west side of it. There's a very famous place over there called Coco King, which some friends of ours own. It's a beautiful beach, great place to hang out, has a restaurant, has a hotel. Have another friend of mine who's doing a very large resort on the east side of the north side of Key Cocker. It is absolutely gorgeous and stunning, and it's just about near completion as well. So if you want more information about what the opportunities are on Key Cocker, to buy real estate, to buy land, to stay on vacation, to visit on an excursion, any of that stuff, just let me know, and I'm happy to get more information to you about that. So great question. Thanks for bringing that up. So again, you can ask me about anything. You can ask me about excursions. You can ask me about vacations. You can ask me about cost of living. You can ask me about best foods to eat. You can ask me about how are the expats? How do they treat each other? You can ask me what it's like to live on an island. I mean, there's a lot of things to know. That's why this seminar is, even though there's been a lot of information conveyed here, and you've watched a lot of my videos at ParadiseGuy.tv. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I get asked every question you can imagine, and I've been living there, and I still learn things every day. So it is a continuous education, and the day you think you know it all is the day that something's going to happen that you're not expecting. So always be a student, always be learning as much as you can. I certainly am, and every time I learn something new, I pass it on to the people that I care about, which is you guys, because you've taken the time out of your lives to get to know me, to watch my videos, to trust me as a resource, and I really appreciate that very, very much. I take my job as the Paradise Guy very, very seriously, and always do my best to give you the best guidance I can. So I see we've got another question coming in here, which is fantastic. I'm excited. Last question, they say. All right, so the last question is utilities such as water, electricity, television, and sports. What is accessibility on the island and the cost on average? Fantastic question. Love this question because they will surprise you. One thing you need to know, and I'll start first with electricity. Electricity is expensive in Belize. So you learn to turn the lights off. You learn to not run your AC all the time. You learn to open the windows and let the wind come through. You learn that you buy ACs with timers on them so you can turn them on at night and you can run them for a couple hours and then they'll shut themselves off. Anything you can do to save energy is going to translate into more money in your pocket to do other things that you'd rather do than give it to the utility company. So utilities, let me give you an idea. I live in a small 2-bedroom condo in Belize. On average, my monthly utility bill, and I'm pretty cost conscious, is between 200 and 300 Belize dollars. So that's let's call it 100 to 150 US. Okay, whenever I talk Belize dollars, just divide it in two, and that's how many US dollars. Okay, let's talk about water. Water is also expensive in Belize, relatively speaking. Now, your water bill can get very high. In my house, you're going to think I'm a miser, but in my house, we watch our dollars. So when we pee, we don't necessarily flush right away. Other things, we flush right away. But, The reason you do that is because every time you flush, first of all, there has been a water shortage the last couple of years on the island. So from a conservation standpoint, it makes sense to preserve water. Secondarily, you just want to save money, and it's good to save money. Let's move on to television and cable, or cable and internet. Cable and internet are generally packaged together. You really don't have the option to separate them, which is frustrating. Now there is a provider out there that you can go to that will give you just internet, but most people go to what's called Coral Cablevision, and they bundle their cable and their internet together. It costs me about 140 Belize for cable and internet every single month. Now, some people say that's cheap by US standards. Other people say that's expensive. You just depends upon your perspective. For me, that's not too expensive. Cell phones are another expense. You can pay as you go for your cell phones down here, which means you can go to the store and you can put $20 on your cell phone, and you can use it until that runs out. Go put another $20 on. I'm on a cell phone plan that gives me data and doesn't run out, and that costs me about $150 Belize a month. So you can see you can start to budget. So I spend, if you're going to live like Will, you're going to spend $150 on your cell phone a month. You're going to spend 400 Belize a month on utilities. You're going to spend, a couple $100 maybe going out to dinner and having a drink here and there. And then, of course, you've got, your mortgage payments or your rent payments, or, permits or work permits or gas in your car or permits for your car or things like that. So there's a lot to know about how to budget down here. Heck, frankly, I could do a whole seminar just on budgeting, because no matter what you think you're going to spend, you always end up spending a little bit more because there are unforeseen expenses that always seem to pop up. So with that, unless anybody else has any last minute questions, I'll wait just a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up this webinar. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully you found all that information useful, but I know it probably created a lot more questions. I want you to know that I'm always here as a resource. Please go to belizesuccess.com and check out your options on how to work with me so that you can achieve all of your objectives. You see, there's a great lifestyle to be experienced in Belize, and there's also great ROI. So whether you want a combination of both or whether you want one or the other, I'm always here to help. With that, my name is William Narod. As always, I am the Paradise Guy. We'll see you down here soon. Cheers.